The conference room on the 14th floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel smelled like money. Mahogany tables, crystal water pitchers, men in $4,000 suits checking their phones. And at the head of it all, Sterling Hatch. Big man, loud voice, the kind of man who fills a room before he says a single word. He was mid-sentence when the elevator doors opened down the hall. A woman walked in. No entourage, no assistant, no designer bag, just a woman in a simple blazer, carrying a worn leather portfolio, moving like she had all the time in the world. Sterling Hatch saw her before anyone else did, and he laughed. Not a quiet laugh, not a polite chuckle, a real laugh, a mean one, the kind that was designed to be heard across a room. "Sweetheart," he said, loud enough for every man at that table. "The coffee station is over there, and next time knock." The room rippled. A few men smirked. A few looked away. Nobody said a word. The woman stopped. She looked at him. Calm eyes. No smile. No anger. She set her portfolio on the table, and she sat down. "Before we go any further, I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Have you ever walked into a room and been judged before you said a single word? Maybe it was a job interview, a business meeting, a dealership, a restaurant, somewhere you knew you belonged, but someone decided you didn't. Drop your story below, because what Sterling Hatch is about to find out is going to feel very familiar to a lot of people watching this. Hatch didn't like that. Men like Sterling Hatch are used to people flinching, used to people leaving when he points at the door. She didn't leave. He pushed his chair back and stood up. "Ma'am, I don't know who let you in here, but this is a closed meeting. Private investors only. You need to go." The woman didn't move. She opened her portfolio, pulled out a single sheet of paper, set it face down on the table. "I know what this meeting is," she said quietly. That was it. That was all she said. Hatch's jaw tightened. He looked at his associate, a man named Greg, and nodded toward the door. Greg walked over, stood directly behind her chair. "Miss, you're going to need to step out." She didn't look at Greg. She looked at the paper in front of her. Then she flipped it over. It was a copy of the meeting agenda. Her name was not on it, but she had it. Hatch's face changed. Just for a second. A flicker. Then the mask came back. Harder. "I don't care what you have," he said. "Security." He picked up his phone, called the front desk, told them to send someone up, told them there was an unauthorized individual in his meeting. While he was still on the phone, he turned to the rest of the table and swept his hand toward her, like she was a piece of furniture that had been moved to the wrong spot. "Gentlemen," he said, voice dripping with contempt, "this is exactly what happens when firms start hiring for optics instead of ability." A few men laughed. One man near the window looked at his hands. Nobody pushed back. The woman said nothing. She reached into her portfolio, took out a fountain pen, uncapped it, set it on top of her documents, and she waited. If you believe that a person's character, not their appearance, is what defines their worth, hit that like button right now. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm that stories like this one matter. If you are new here, hit subscribe, because on this channel, we do not let arrogance win, not without consequences. Stay with me, because what happens in the next 5 minutes is going to be very satisfying. 2 security guards arrived 4 minutes later. Hatch pointed at her like he was flagging down a cab. "Escort her out. If she refuses, call the police and have her removed." One guard stepped up and touched her shoulder. She looked up at him, not afraid, not angry, just steady. She said 2 words. "One moment." And then she did something no one expected. She took out her phone, made a call. 3 words into it. "We're ready now." She hung up. The guard looked at Hatch. Hatch looked at the guard. "What did I just say?" Hatch snapped. "Get her out of this building." The guard reached for her arm. She stood on her own, straightened her blazer, picked up her portfolio. And she smiled for the first time. Not at Hatch, not at the room, at the door. Because the door had just opened. Two men walked in. Dark suits, quiet shoes. No announcement. They crossed the room without making eye contact with anyone and walked directly to the empty chair at the far end of the table. Pulled it out. Stood behind it. For her. Hatch stared. "Who the hell are you people?" One of the men set a thin folder on the table. Said nothing. The other handed a business card to Greg. Greg read it. Greg's face went white. Hatch snatched the card out of his hand. Read it. Looked up at the woman. This has to be some kind of mistake. She sat down in the chair they had pulled for her. "No," she said. "No mistake." The room had gone very quiet. Hatch was still standing, but the big man energy was draining out of him fast. "Somebody call Marcus. Call our legal team. I want this whole thing paused right now." He was pointing at phones, pointing at people, moving like a man trying to hold water in his hands. She watched him, said nothing, and that silence, that absolute, unshakable stillness, was the most powerful thing in the room. One of her men slid the folder down the length of the table. She opened it. Inside, 3 documents stapled separately, already signed on her end. She turned the folder toward the room, so every man at that table could read what was on the front page. The logo at the top, Reeves Capital Partners. The number below it, $3,100,000,000. Assets under management. Hatch read it. Read it again. His throat moved. That number doesn't. You don't have the votes. The board hasn't approved. The door opened again. A third man walked in. Older, gray hair, impeccable suit. He was the board chairman of the hotel chain they had all come here to acquire. He didn't look at Hatch. He looked at her. He nodded once. She nodded back. Hatch sat down. The board chairman stood at the head of the table. He didn't make a speech. He opened a single folder, slid it to the center of the table, and said, "Gentlemen, the acquisition has been finalized. The buyer has been approved by the full board. Effective this morning." He tapped the folder. Diana Reeves, founder and chief executive officer of Reeves Capital Partners. Transaction value, $540 million. All closing documents have been executed. He looked directly at Hatch. "Mr. Hatch, your firm's bid was declined 6 days ago. Your office was informed by certified letter." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Hatch's face cycled through 5 different emotions in about 4 seconds. Disbelief, anger, calculation, fear, and then something that looked almost like shame. Diana Reeves reached into her portfolio one final time. She pulled out the letter, the one sent to Hatch's firm 6 days ago. She placed it on the table in front of him. Gently, precisely. She said nothing. She didn't have to. Hatch stared at the letter, then at her. "Look, Diana, Ms. Reeves," he stopped. Tried to regroup. "I didn't know. Nobody told me who you were. If I had known." She held up one hand. He stopped talking immediately. She stood, slowly, buttoned her blazer, looked around that table, made direct eye contact with every single man in that room. Then she looked at Hatch, and she spoke, quietly, evenly. No performance, no theater, no anger in her voice. Just truth. "You didn't need to know who I was. That is exactly the point. You walked into a room full of people you had never met. And before I said a single word, before you knew my name, my firm, my record, or my purpose. You made a decision. You decided what I was worth. You decided I was less. Not because of anything I did. Because of what you assumed the moment you looked at me. She let that settle. I have been in business for 19 years. I have closed 31 acquisitions across 11 states. I have sat at tables that make this one look like a folding chair. And in every room I walk into, there is always one man who makes the same mistake you made today. Every single time. She picked up her portfolio. The coffee station is still over there. You're welcome to it. She walked toward the door. Then she stopped. One final thing. My father was a staff sergeant in the United States Army. 3 tours. Never complained once. He taught me one thing before he taught me anything else. He said, "Baby girl, the most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody sees coming." She looked at Hatch one last time. He was right. She walked out. The door closed behind her, quiet as a verdict. And that is the thing about judgment. It is never free. Every time a person looks at another human being and decides their value before they have earned that right, they are making a bet. A blind one. And some bets cost everything. Diana Reeves did not need Sterling Hatch to respect her. She was never asking for that. She had already won long before she walked into that room. She walked in because she owned it. The most powerful people in any space are almost always the quietest ones in it. The ones who don't announce themselves. The ones who let the work speak. The ones who have nothing left to prove, because they already proved it. Remember that the next time you write someone off, the book you judge by its cover might just own the building you are standing in.